What's going on, guys? Can you believe what has been going on behind the scenes? Meanwhile, the world is focused on something entirely different. Thousands of people were affected by this shocking news, but it seems like they wanted to keep it hush-hush. So what's the deal? It all revolves around something that you might not expect: meat. Yeah, guys, you heard me right. If you guys have been consuming meat from the stores, restaurants, grocery stores, or even fast food joints, you need to pay attention because what you think you're eating might not be exactly what they're serving on your plate. Check this out.
For the first time, U.S. regulators approved the sale of chicken made from animal cells. It allows 2 California companies to offer lab-grown meat to restaurants. The cultivated meat is grown in steel tanks using cells that come from a living animal, a fertilized egg, or a special bank of stored cells.
It feels strange, a little peculiar initially, but after a period of time, it becomes ubiquitous and boring, and that's eventually the path for cultivated meat.
You heard that right, guys. U.S. regulators have just approved the sale of chicken made from animal cells, paving the way for what they're calling lab-grown meat. Talk about GMOs, right? Lab-grown meat. Wow. 2 California companies, Upside Foods and Good Meat, they're leading the charge to offer this new kind of meat. Now, I'm using quotation marks here, guys. This will eventually make its way to restaurants and even supermarket shelves. The goal here is to revolutionize meat production, not only for ethical reasons, but to also drastically reduce the environmental impact caused by the usual animal husbandry. Now, imagine producing meat without the need for, vast amounts of land and water to feed animals raised just for the simple factor, the ultimate goal of slaughter. That's the vision that these companies are working towards. But I don't know about this, guys. Now, maybe, just maybe, there's an argument to be made that the real isn't about, just saving the environment, but about total control of your body, your life, and your death. You know what I mean? Globally, over 150 companies are researching meat growth from cells, not just chicken, but also pork, lamb, fish, and beef. Yeah, they're saying that this lab-grown meat is a good idea for the environment, but I'm not so sure about this, guys. We all know what happens down the line. Oh, wait, we didn't know that this is going to cause cancer. Now, there was even some research about it being proved contrary. But wait, guys, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and talk about some details about this lab-grown meat first. So, cultivated meat is created in steel tanks using cells from living animals, fertilized eggs, or specifically stored cells. Now, Upside Foods shapes its meats into large cells, while Good Meat transforms masses of chicken cells into different things like cutlets, nuggets, and more. Now, just in case you were wondering, these won't be hitting your grocery stores just yet. It's currently more expensive than traditional meat and can't be produced on the same scale at the moment. So, Upside Foods and Good Meat, they plan to introduce their revolutionary meat creations in exclusive restaurants first. Now, the idea is to have you savor the experience of real meat that's been cultivated in labs, not plant-based substitutes like the Impossible Burger or Beyond Meat. But still, it's pretty hard to get over that ick factor, you know what I mean? People might find it strange or even unsafe, but as technology and awareness progresses, we may see a gradual shift toward embracing this new approach to meat production. Soon, Americans are going to be able to try chicken that comes directly from chicken cells rather than, a chicken. This happens in a production factory that looks a lot like a brewery. Like when you picture it, don't think of people in white lab coats and hairnets peering through microscopes into petri dishes, but instead people in white coats and hairnets wandering between giant vats. When the meat is ready, companies collect it from the bioreactors and they remove it from the processing line. They described Good Meat's protein as looking a lot like a minced chicken when they first extract it. So what's so great about that, right? Well, one of the greatest selling points here for these companies is the idea that it could supposedly eliminate the need to slaughter animals. Okay, that's a good upside. Now take Upside Foods, for example. They gather cells from fertilized chicken eggs, store them in a cell bank, and those cells can be used for up to a decade. Animal cells can even be sourced from biopsies or feathers, among other places. Then, of course, there's the environmental angle. Now, sure, making cultivated meat requires a lot of energy, but this is supposedly offset by the reduction in land and water consumption, among other advantages. So I think they're working on a renewable energy angle with this whole lab-grown meat, kind of making it, 2 for 1 for these companies, you know what I mean? Now, if it were possible that this were totally safe, both in the short and in the long term, that's pretty big, especially if this could end up being a solution for feeding our growing global population. So yeah, pretty much a game changer for the future of meat consumption. Now, question is it vegetarian? Well, no. No, not at all. Now, unlike plant-based meats like the products that have been made by Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat, ticker symbol BYND, cultivated meat uses animal cells, so it's not actually considered vegetarian. But because cultivated meat actually comes from cells rather than animals with intestines, they're not exposed to the same type of contaminants that could plague traditionally harvested meats. And so that means that cultivated meat should be free of E. coli and salmonella. Something to consider, but if you're trying to cut down on meat, this isn't exactly probably the way to go. Now, another big question about this lab-grown meat. So, does it taste like regular meat? Well, basically, yes. A lot of people say it does actually taste just like chicken. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, they've opened the floodgates for all types of cultivated meat. We would need to go through another regulatory process for beef, for pork, or for any other animal protein for that matter. But it costs a lot to make it. It cost over $300,000 to develop the first lab-grown burger, which was served just a decade ago. That's an expensive burger. That's more than that Angus. The British company Ivy Farms said last year that it could produce a similar food or similar product for less than $50. Now, this is a big improvement, but it's still very, very expensive. But I think you guys can agree with me that it's still way more expensive than a traditional burger would cost in a restaurant, and definitely more than it would cost in the store. And they haven't even added the markup on that yet. These companies, these businesses, they have to make a profit. So if it costs $50 to buy it, it ain't gonna cost $50 to serve it. But right now the company is not making money on these sales. So they're basically just kind of taking a loss just to get the product out there. The idea is that they want people to taste it and eventually tell their friends and their family about it. But what do you guys think? Would you try this lab-grown chicken? Hit the like button right now. And if you don't want to try it, still hit the like button. I appreciate that, y'all. Really helps out the channel a lot. And if you guys want more updates, news updates, financial freedom news, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also click that notification bell, all right? All right, so let's take a look at the global side of things, right? So Singapore was the first country to allow the sale of lab-grown meat. The first country approved the sale of cell-cultivated chicken in 2020. They have 2 restaurants offering it, and apparently many customers consider it phenomenal, at least according to BBC News. But right here in the United States, maybe we need Congress on it. Have them make laws that restaurants have to post if they're using fake meat or real meat, that kind of thing. Something that the mainstream media really doesn't talk about is the fact that Italy just banned GMO, bioengineered, and lab-created foods. Now you gotta wonder why. Any company, farm, restaurant, or store found creating, selling, or even growing that type of food would be fined and or shut down and jailed. That's a pretty serious offense. So what has the government so concerned about protecting their people from that type of food? Gotta wonder. Now, instead of embracing lab-grown meat like the Netherlands, Singapore, and the United States, Italy is banning it. Now, the ban is mostly meant to protect Italian farmers. However, the government has expressed apprehension about the quality of lab-grown foods as well. Italy is known for its culinary heritage. The country doesn't want anything to threaten that. I don't blame them. They're also talking about how lab-grown meat could be a huge tool for tackling the climate crisis, which is an ever-present and increasingly dangerous issue. But is it really though? According to preprint, which hasn't undergone peer review yet, lab-grown or cultivated meat might not be the green solution that we thought it was. In fact, the environmental impact could be orders of magnitude higher than that of retail beef. You heard that right, folks. The researchers conducted a thorough life cycle assessment considering the energy consumption and the greenhouse gas emissions throughout all stages of production, and they compared it to the beef production. Well, the real challenge with lab-grown meat, it lies in the highly refined or purified growth media, which is essential for animal cells to multiply. Now, currently, this process resembles the biotechnology used in making pharmaceuticals. Now, here's a real big question, right? Is lab-grown meat a pharmaceutical product or is it a food product? I wonder if Pfizer would make burgers for us in their labs. I'm just wondering. Now, the real answer matters because if companies have to purify growth media to pharmaceutical levels, it consumes more resources, leading to increased global warming potential. So then where the heck is the freaking benefit, right? That's not good news for our environment, nor is it good news for our wallets. Now, if we keep going down this pharma path, this lab-grown rabbit hole, the lab-grown meat might end up being even more expensive and less environmentally friendly than the conventional beef. At the end, me and you, regular consumers, we end up losing. The scientists measured the global impact potential of, by calculating the carbon dioxide equivalents emitted per kilogram of meat produced. And guess what, guys? Lab-grown meat using these purified media can be 4 to 25 times worse for the environment than, compared to average retail beef. Now, there was an analysis about this in 2021. They found that the cost of cultivation facilities would be too high for lab-grown meat to significantly displace the meat meatpacking industry's market share. The study also showed that even the most efficient beef production systems outperformed cultured meat in all scenarios. All scenarios, guys, whether they're talking about food or pharma. Meaning, investing in more climate-friendly beef production might lead to quicker and more substantial reductions in emissions than pouring resources into cultured meats. So, there you have it, folks, the truth behind the lab-grown meat's environmental impact. The future of meat production is still a work in progress, and I think people deserve to weigh all of their options to make sure that they're making the best choices for our planet, for our bodies, for our kids, for our families. Am I right, guys? Religious scholars are still wrestling with the idea of whether cultured meat can ever truly be halal or actually kosher. And many vegans who might be expected to be a key constituency have ethical objections. Now, on a practical level, taste and smell are reportedly pretty much all indistinguishable from the real thing, but there remain some kinks in getting the texture just right. So basically, the way it feels in your mouth, it's kind of like, what is this? Plus, it is worth pointing out that among those most likely to profit from these experiments are the major meatpacking companies. Tyson Foods, the largest meatpacking company in the United States, was an early investor in the plant-based meat company Beyond Meat, and they have actually put money in Upside Foods. Meatpacking giants JBS and Cargill have also invested in lab-grown meat. Companies making lab-cultured meat, just like meatpacking companies, would likely require heavy government subsidization because their products, they're just not affordable. Translation, Congress could end up spending taxpayer dollars just for this. Like slaughterhouses, cultured meat labs will have to confront problems with infection. Cultured animal cells are alive and can become infected with viruses at the same scale required to mass produce lab-grown meat. The chances of infection, they're only going to get higher. And you might be wondering, why this slipped under the radar while everyone's attention was elsewhere. Well, some big players like BlackRock and Vanguard seem to be backing this lab-grown meat movement. Are you really surprised that BlackRock and Vanguard may have been behind this? I'm not surprised. And you know how things tend to be in favor of the big guys. But hey, there are still alternatives out there, like your local farmers and your local ranchers. We just really need to be more conscious about what we're eating and where it comes from. Lab-grown meat might sound cool and, a good sci-fi concept, but we need to look at the bigger picture and consider the environmental impact and potential health risks. So yeah, it is good that you guys are here, so you should know these things. You never know, they could easily eventually just put this lab-grown meat on our grocery store shelves without us even knowing about it. Friends of mine, they're already saying that if you do have to buy meat from the store, make sure to get the meat with bones in it. No frozen, boneless meat either. Who knows what's actually in that package? So yeah, guys, know your options, make informed choices, and let's stand together for better and healthier food choices. Who's with me, guys? By the way, if you made it this far in the video, do your boy a favor, drop a quick like for the video and subscribe to the channel. I totally appreciate that. I look forward to seeing y'all on the next one.